Microsoft Spotlight user group. This is our first one in February 2022. Today's user group, I normally say podcast, is sponsored by BitTitan. So go to bittitan.com today to see how you can migrate your data to the cloud. So first up, we've got Dean Ellerby, who's going to be going through Windows. I can't remember what it's called, app control.
App control, yeah. Microsoft can't remember what it's called either, so you're all right.
As long as you say Defender, I guess you're kind of halfway there for most things nowadays.
Indeed.
But Dean, yeah, if you'd like to just share your screen and we can go from there.
Yeah, of course. I'll firstly apologise. The wind in Durham, where I live, is ridiculous. It's like 60 mile an hour gust of wind. So that wouldn't normally be a problem, but I use satellite for internet, so it is a problem for me. So if the screen goes blurry, just raise your hand and let me know so I can pause and recover the stuff that I was previously talking about. I'm just going to share a screen and hopefully I assume you can.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, it's not as blurry as it was earlier, don't worry.
Well, there you go. Good. Right. So I'm Dean Ellerby. I'm a newly awarded Microsoft MVP and a certified trainer. So I've been working with endpoints and identity for about 13 years now. And one of the things that really interests me is the interaction between IT security admins and normal limited users in an organization. So, for example, a lot of users think that IT security people just want to stop them from being able to do their job. They want to just delay getting stuff done. And a lot of IT security people believe that normal users are just the weak link in their security chain, and it would be easier if they didn't exist. And they keep clicking on links that they shouldn't click and going to Wi-Fi hotspots that they should have avoided. And so this talk, as you can see, is about how to stop ransomware in its tracks, because both of those parties, the normal users and the IT security and endpoint management admins in general, whose responsibility is it within the organization to stop ransomware in its tracks? And so I should mention that this is actually my first ever public speaking engagement. I've recorded about 100 really pants YouTube videos over the past 10 months, but this is the first time I've tried speaking in public live. So I'm kind of used to talking to a camera, but not kind of used to not being able to edit it when I get stuff wrong or click the wrong button. So anything could happen with this. So I want you to notice the title of the talk, really, because I've only got a couple of slides before I jump into a demo. I didn't really know the audience on this one because it's a new user group and stuff, and I'm fresh to speaking. So I've kept it a bit high level for some of it, but I do want to go into a demo. So the title of the talk, so for example, it is not stop 100% of ransomware or prevent ransomware and protect your organization. You can't prevent all ransomware. And the reason is it's really hard for most organizations, almost impossible for most organizations to prevent all ransomware or to stop 100% of ransomware. Let's say, for example, a new vulnerability is discovered in Windows today, like right this second. It's broadcast on Twitter to the world. Let's say it was put on GitHub and someone picked it up and accidentally leaked it out. Let's take printers, for example. Let's assume that there's a way an attacker could run scripts, code, malware on the most important servers in your organization, like a domain controller, for example. That's the best picture of a domain controller I could pick up in the time I had. And so due to this vulnerability, they can run that code as the most privileged user in the organization, so system. And they can do that by compromising any user's laptop. Sounds really bad, doesn't it? So let's consider for a moment if you could apply a single policy or a couple of policies to those servers and endpoints, the laptops, for example, and say only run scripts, code, binaries, or apps that are signed by Microsoft or that are a core part of Windows. For a domain controller, that's pretty easy. They shouldn't really be running anything other than Microsoft stuff, maybe a third-party security agent, but it should be a fairly simple set of policies to create. You know what's running on your domain controllers, and you want to really think that through when you are putting a domain controller together. Don't install too much, for example. So tightening it down and saying only run these things should be fairly simple. Endpoint is slightly different, but we'll come on to that in a bit. So you can, and it's called Windows Defender Application Control. It's built in to Windows 10 and Windows 11 and 2016 and above. And some of you might have spotted it, but the printer analogy I gave earlier on, example I gave earlier on, happened pretty much exactly as I said in July last year. And it was called Print Nightmare. With app control, with Windows Defender Application Control, I might just refer to it as app control for the rest of this. An attacker isn't simply able to use a vulnerability that's been uncovered directly in your environment. They need to spend some time understanding what protections you've put in place to prevent them running applications. So they can't just use that vulnerability, they can't just run that script or run that MSI. They need to get around the security. So depending on the methods you've used to deploy app control, that could be a really quick thing for an attacker to do, or it could take them an awful lot of time and money to do. All you need to do, though, is to hold off someone leveraging that vulnerability until that vulnerability has been patched. And then you roll out the patch, and then you can move on and you don't need to worry about it. So with Print Nightmare, like I said, most organizations disabled printing while the vulnerability was unpatched. Say most, lots of organizations disabled printing. And that roughly achieved the same thing. But with app control, that effectively just gives you some time. And as with the title, it stops ransomware in its tracks. It will probably make it sufficiently inconvenient for an attacker to stop attacking you. They'd have to evade your app control policies and the other protections that you've got in place. It might give you time to detect the presence of the attack and to close the door in another way, and it buys you valuable time to fix the problem. It will stop the ransomware in its tracks. So, meet Carrie. Carrie is a Microsoft 365 administrator, and she's been tasked with making sure that her organization, the Modern Orthodontics Society, is protected against ransomware. I already had the domain get modern and needed to think of an organization, so I went for that. Carrie's decided that she's going to leverage Windows Defender Application Control managed by Intune to start that journey. So let me just end that slideshow. We go into this demo. Now, I've had Teams off for a little while, so I'm going to check if everyone's still there. Any questions? No? Okay, all good. Fine. So hopefully you can now see my Endpoint Manager Admin Center. For anyone who is aware of Intune or not, this is the Endpoint Manager Admin Center, also known as Intune for the cloud management stuff. I'm going to go through some of the ways we can manage Defender app control through this. Just get my notes. So there are a few ways, more than a few ways to configure Defender app control. And I'm going to call it Defender app control because Microsoft can't work out whether it's called Microsoft Defender app control or Windows Defender app control, and they do mix it up when they're talking about it in the portal. So we're going to go through each of those. So firstly, we'll just go into devices and then down to a very simple configuration profile. I've got one here called the Endpoint Protection Profile. I'll just create a new, well, I won't, I'll go into this one I've already got and edit it so you can see what we've set. It is fiendishly simple. There's all of these here that you can use, all called Defender something, but the one we're looking at here is Defender Application Control. And you can see the settings we've got to choose from are not configure, enforce, and audit only on the application control integrity policy. So is it turned on or not? We can enforce it or we can audit it. If we enforce it, then the policy that we put in place in the next setting will be enforced and users will be prevented, perhaps, from running applications. Or if we choose audit, then we'll be notified in the logs, but there are millions of logs that I'm not going to be able to go through in the time I've got for this session. But essentially, the user carries on working. They don't know they would have been blocked, but it gets audited. So we've got that, and then we've got trust apps with good reputation. So these apps will be allowed to run, as the tools have said. You've got not configured or enable. And you can see in this helpful description, only Windows components, Microsoft Store apps, and reputable apps, as defined by the Intelligent Security Graph, will be allowed to run. There's not an awful lot of information about what the Intelligent Security Graph is, but if you are interested, give me a shout, and we can go into it in more detail. But essentially, it's a way of Microsoft determining whether an application is good. It isn't sort of a block list or an allow list. It just, if an application has good reputation, so is it widespread across the world? Are people downloading it? Is there good analytics about it? Then it's in the Intelligent Security Graph as a good reputation. The inverse doesn't happen. If an application is really bad, it doesn't get given a bad reputation. That's something called smart screen. But with this implementation of the ISG, it's just whether it's good or not. If it's good, it'll be allowed to run. As you can see, this is a very simple implementation. There are no more configurations you can put in place with this. This is it. So I've deployed this. As you can see, I've deployed it to a group called, that's the other thing I want to show you. This is called Microsoft Defender Application Control, as opposed to Windows Defender Application Control. It's the first time I've seen it written as Wdac rather than Wdac. I need to find where it says that. If we go through into templates and then endpoint protection. Where did I see it? Definitely. Oh, sorry, of course, there we've just been through it. So Microsoft Defender Application Control, as opposed to Windows Defender, which is what is written everywhere else. So let's take a look at what happens when we try a machine. I'll try and remember what machine I've got this deployed to. Machine 2. That one there. So as I said, I'm taking the place of Carrie at the moment, and she's testing this out. So the policy has been deployed to this machine, and essentially what we say is trusted apps will run fine. So all the built-in stuff, Teams, for example, will run fine. It will let users do what they normally do day to day. And Chrome, for example, that's a well-trusted application across the estate and the world. 7-zip, though, might not. Didn't work before. Yeah, so this particular version of 7-zip that I've deployed via Intune hasn't got a good reputation. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it hasn't got a good reputation. So for whatever reason, that application isn't allowed to run in this organization. And this malware app that I've created and downloaded, this Run Me application, which will spit out a load of things, hopefully will be blocked as well. So the example here is that if a user's been tricked into downloading a self-executing file, for example, it just can't run. You know, PowerShell runs in constrained language mode and prevents unsigned scripts and all that kind of stuff. And this application can't run to do various horrible stuff to your network. So that's pretty simple. You saw how very simple it was to define. There wasn't an awful lot of control that we had with that, but it's done the job. So the apps that are good can run, but the apps that I know are bad can't run. And even the apps that I'm not sure about just can't run. So 7-zip, for example, as I said, I did deploy this via Intune. So this could be a line of business application, but as I've deployed it, I want it to run. I don't care what Microsoft think about it necessarily, whether they know it's good. I need my line of business app to run. So this is a good example of a line of business app. So let's look at, is there any other questions on, sorry, any questions at all on stuff that I've been through so far? No, good.
No, you're all good.
Awesome. Okay, so next, let's take a look at another way to deploy this policy, which is, they've put some stuff in endpoint security now, and there's a load of places you can configure security. So I've just clicked on endpoint security, and then in this left-hand pane here, you can go into attack surface reduction, and then we can create a policy for Windows 10, and then you've got application control here. And the words must have been written by different people, but they mean the same thing, and it prevents applications that aren't good from running. Let's go into the one I've created already, although I haven't deployed this because it wasn't that much different from the one we've just done. If we go into properties and have a look at the settings in this view, you can see we've got a little bit of a different layout of the control. So if I show you the options we've got, with Microsoft Defender Application Control, we can enforce components and store apps, so Windows components and store applications, or we can audit that, or we can enforce components, store apps, and Smart Locker. Smart Locker being another name for the intelligent security graph. It's not, I can't figure out what it's meant to mean. It is just Smart Locker, intelligent security graph though. And then we can also do some other things like turn on Smart Screen when actually this says yes, but the default is also not configured as also yes. So this almost does nothing at all, but yes will enforce it to be on, and this means users can change it. So we can choose yes. We can also block users from ignoring Smart Screen. So if the application is blocked, we can say, if this is not configured, the user is actually allowed to override that with this policy and say, I don't care that you blocked it, I'd like to run it anyway, I'm happy with the risks. And that gets audited and stuff, but we can also block that from happening. But the default would prevent a user and then allow them to override it. So I haven't deployed that because that's roughly the same as the other method. There is a third method though, which is a bit more in depth, but it gives you far greater control. So I want to cover that in the most detail. Let's look at devices and then go down to configuration profiles. And we've got this custom profile that I've created here. I've created it because, as I mentioned, this is it's obviously a live demo, and it's my first ever talk and demo at the same time, so I'm playing it safe, but I'll go through the policy that I've created and just show you what we've got. We need to configure an OMA URI, which looks a little bit like this. Not a particularly easy way to see that, but it's vendor, MSFT, application control, policies, and then a GUID, and then policy. So this GUID you get from creating an XML, creating a policy, and then the certificate file you also get from creating a policy. But the question is, how do you create a policy in the first place to put this information into this OMA URI? Because this is the only setting you get for this custom profile that I've created. You can see I've got this OMA URI, and nothing else is configured apart from the fact that it's deployed. So there is a special website called the Wdac Policy Wizard. It's produced by Microsoft, so it is official. And the idea is that you have a look at the project on GitHub, you understand some of the documentation, but generally you started off by downloading this here. This is the Windows Defender Application Control Policy Wizard. And you can see right at the start, this is the home screen. We've got the option of creating a single policy format policy, or using the multiple policy format. Multiple policy is just better. It's just newer, better. It supports the concept of base and supplemental policies, as we're going to cover shortly. But yeah, the idea is that you would use multiple policy always from Windows 1903 onwards. So if we create a base policy then, and we choose next, we get to choose this thing that you now will be hopefully familiar with. We've got the default Windows mode, which is just the core components and store apps, and then things like Office 365, OneDrive, Teams, and the signed drivers. Then allow all Microsoft, which is all Microsoft signed applications. And then finally, signed and reputable, which would be all of the above, and then also files with good reputation in the ISG, in the Intelligent Security Graph. So if we choose this one, because that mostly is similar with what we've just done, it gives us the location. It's going to put these files for us. It's going to create a policy, and it's going to put it here. You can see it creates a. I keep doing that. It puts it here. If you click that, it opens the browse button. Create that for us. So I'm going to choose next. And you can see it gives us some additional options. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but the key one that I want to show you is managed installer, because that will have a big impact in how we can allow applications that we deploy in the environment. So a managed installer, in fact, the tooltip just appears right at the bottom of the screen. You might be able to see that. So it says when enabled, can't point, it appears down here. Oh, there it is. When enabled, applications installed by a software distribution solution such as SCCM or Intune or any other MDM, I assume, are allow listed. So they'll be allowed to run, which is brilliant, because that would mean, for example, that 7.2 application that was blocked by the signed and reputable concept will be allowed to run, and any line of business apps that you need to push will be allowed to run. There's tons of other options here, such as install and enforce store application, enforce the policy on store applications that are deployed. You can also turn on or off the ISG concept, require them to be signed by the WHQL, for example, and advanced options such as if a driver or an application that's required to allow the machine to boot fails, then it will change the policy to audit mode so that you can get into the device, and hopefully you've got some capturing on those logs so you can actually see that it's happened. Generally, there's a lot more control, as you can see. And then we choose. Oh, sorry, I go back. There's no back button. Do you want to run this policy in audit mode? Obviously, for this demonstration, it'd be useful if we actually saw it run. So I've turned that to off on the one I've created already. We choose next. It shows you the rules that are going to be created automatically, quite a lot. And you can add a custom rule if you want to, which allows you to choose publisher, path, attributes, packaged app, or a file hash, allow or deny. Very simple, but that's the idea of a wizard, right? So we choose next, and then it will create the policy for you and put it where it's said. Now I'm going to go and grab these files. In fact, I'm not going to grab them. They're here. So there's an XML that gets created, and there's a CIP file that gets created. Now, I don't need the CIP file. I need a bin file to upload into this section here. Let me show you it. This certificate file here requires a bin, so I'm not going to click it because it'll show my folder structure, but this is a binary file. So we need to convert the XML to a binary file to upload it here. So we do that by following the documentation, and I just need to find it. So to deploy it in a multiple policy format, we simply get the GUID from the XML. So for example, it's a lot. This is the XML file here that I would have created. You look for policy ID and grab the policy ID. You can see it's the same as the base policy ID, hopefully there. So that's the policy ID inside the brackets there, not the brackets themselves. You stick that into this bit here. As you can see, hopefully is right. And then we need to upload this file. So we grab that by, find the documentation. There it is. So we convert from CI policy into a binary file, like you can see just here. So the documentation is pretty good. I'm not going to go into that in too much more depth, but generally that's how you create that policy, and then you just deploy it. It's fairly simple. So I've deployed it to a machine. I'll show you that now. Is 1, I think. Again, just sign in as Harry. Shouldn't have enforced such a ridiculous password, to be honest. Get carried away sometimes. Right, so this has a similar policy deployed to it, and you can hopefully see that access will work fine, and hopefully see that my hacking application that I stuck on the machine here will not run because it's, you know, bad. In general, it's a script that I forget what it actually does. I think it just says the script ran or something, but generally it's something that we don't know of, and it hasn't been deployed via Intune, certainly. And then 7-zip, we deployed that via Intune, didn't work. That's a shame. I was hoping that would actually work. It did work earlier on, but clearly didn't work, and that's why live demos are evil. But there you go. There's something about this 7-zip thing that it doesn't like. Anyway, that's the concept. The whole idea is that you make sure that the applications in the estate can run, the ones that you deploy via Intune. You can use path rules, you can sign it, whatever, to get that to work. And it's not, you shouldn't start. Watched a video the other day from, I'll talk about them in a minute, but awesome MVPs about Wdac in preparation for this. And Kim Oppelfans said a lot of organizations try to start with the most complex people, the IT admins, for example, and try to deploy Wdac in those environments first and then roll it out to users. Whereas if you start with the users, essentially that's easier, right? Because users don't have that many application changes every day. So you get a single policy which seems to work, apply supplemental policies on top of that for specific workloads that require additional allow lists, and then that's you done for months, really. And then if you use the managed installer concept that I showed you earlier on, hopefully that will allow you to push applications and updates via Intune and SCCM without you needing to worry about updating that policy. So finally, I want to show you this tweet from Kim, because Microsoft Security Intelligence, so Microsoft Intel, end of last year, gave this information to the public. So they're analyzing Z-loader campaigns in September to do with how attackers are now using ad platforms and ad campaigns to deploy files to users. Hopefully you can see the text, but I'm going to read through it. So, for example, a user does a Google search using keywords that return malicious ads. The ad sends them to a compromised domain, and then some stuff gets downloaded. This malicious MSI file is downloaded. The MSI exec is used to pull down several files and some legitimate ones, but there's a malicious bat file. That bat file then connects to command and control C2, and PowerShell is used to disable some security settings and products, and then the malicious payload tim.exe is downloaded to the device. It checks if the machine's on a domain and then downloads DLLs and stuff, and then we're in a bad situation. And Kim, this is his Twitter handle here, Kim's response is, well, this is how it goes with Wdac. The MSI is blocked. The end. Also, if it wasn't, for whatever reason, PowerShell's running constrained language mode, so this bit here wouldn't have happened. So Tim wouldn't have been downloaded, and the DLL wouldn't have been loaded. And so the beacon stuff that they used to to get access wouldn't work. So Wdac would have prevented that. It would have prevented Print Nightmare and all the other early 2021 ransomwares that took place. So Kim's an awesome guy, and he's got a lot to say about Wdac. Finally, there is a session, a series by Matthias Malekson. He runs Mem Tips and Tricks on YouTube. This is part 1 of Windows Defender Application Control, where Kim and Matthias essentially talk through Wdac in much more depth than I have, because Kim has been working on it with his company for the past 3 or 4 years, and he's full of information about how to do it properly. I just wanted to spend a bit of time introducing it to you, showing you how it could be done. Isn't perfect, but the idea is that let me go back to my slide. A second. I think I'm okay for time. If you go back to carry, my original point was, whose responsibility is it to make sure that users don't click links? Well, when we say don't click links, we mean don't click the bad links. But if we send you a link to like a HR policy change or an event or something, please click that. So what's the user meant to do? Just become an expert in all the possible phishing methods that are out there? Why don't we just make it possible for users to click the bad links and then carry on with life? So I'm not saying that Wdac is easy to implement across your entire estate. And as I mentioned with what Kim said, if you just implemented it for 80% of your normal users, or 80% of your staff, which is normal users in your environment, you've reduced your attack surface by at least 80%, because those users are the ones who are more likely to click on things in the first place. So it's going to be more than 80% of the estate that's essentially protected and more likely to stop ransomware in its tracks. So that's a really good start. So before spending money on training users not to click bad links, or spending money on ransomware recovery tools and preparing for the worst, start by just using the controls you've already got and invest time and money into making Windows Defender Application Control work for your organization. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Dean. And you wouldn't think that was your first time doing a live demo and talking, so you did really, really well. And thank you so much for being part of the user group. So if you have got any questions regarding that, if you want to put it in the chat, I know we've got a couple of people typing, so Dean, I'll just read out the questions and then you can answer. And if anyone does want to turn the microphone on and ask a question that way, that's absolutely fine as well. So Peter says, obviously you can read it, are there any plans on the roadmap to bring the customization of allowed apps, etc., into Intune natively rather than with the additional tool and binary files, etc.?
Yes, so that is kind of covered in the talk from Kim, if you have a look at that. But essentially there is a private preview open that I'm trying to get access to, but there's a private preview open for some changes to Wdac in Intune, where you can use your organization security certificate to sign applications, and in the same way you would with security cabinets for drivers, that same concept can be applied to applications. With Intune and SCCM, there just isn't a way to do that natively right now. So Kim and his team have put together a method of doing that is probably proprietary, because they've got an organization who deliver training for a start and also security for other organizations. He's hopefully going to go through it in the next part of that talk with Matthias. He said he will, but we'll see. But yeah, there's a lot of work coming on in Intune. Yeah.
Perfect.
I've got one, if that's all right. I'll shoot. Dean, I had to play with this. I'm obviously an Intune noob. I struggled greatly. I just flipped on all the switches in Intune and did the managed tour apps. The big one that threw me was the intelligent security graph. What exactly is the intelligent security graph, and what does it do?
Yeah, so Microsoft don't give an awful lot of information about what it is. I mean, they call it 2 different things for a start. Yeah. And it is the same thing that allows them to make smart screen decisions around whether a thing is generally good. As I mentioned at the start, it isn't sort of a this is bad because of X. It's more this is good because it's shown to be good by being available on lots of devices, being well used. That's what makes it good, I think. But as I say, they aren't too open about what it actually is for obvious reasons.
Okay, all right, cool. Because I think I saw your little wizard at the beginning. That looks awesome. That looks like it would alleviate some of the problems I had, because I just flipped all the switches in Intune and said away you go, and then I ended up in a horrible mess. So I had to roll it back to audit mode.
Yeah, and Kim in the talk goes through obviously you should use audit mode first. The idea of using enforce, it was only good for a demonstration. Use audit mode first certainly, and Kim goes through how you can reduce the number of logs that you get in audit mode, because if you turn this on in audit mode, you will get thousands of logs per device per day. So it's too many to use. So Kim goes through how you can use their method to reduce that to a couple of hundred per day.
Awesome,
and thank you to Andy and Chris.
Lovely. If you do have any more questions as well afterwards, if you think of any, just you can contact myself, Dean, Andy or John, and we'll pass them over to Dean as well, and get anything back to you that we can do. So next up, we have Zoe Wilson and Luke Evans. So I'm going to pass, myself over to you guys to introduce and take it away for the next bit of the tech talk, if that's all right.
Brilliant. Sounds good to me.
Thank you.
Okay, now there is a reason my camera's not on. All will become apparent in just a moment. Brilliant. Okay, so first of all, the first thing we'd like to say is thanks for having us on. I hope you're going to have as much fun in this next 30 minutes, 40 minutes, however long we've got, as Luke and I have had this week putting this together. I can't actually remember the ridiculously long title that we put together for this, and I can see Luke's not even put it on the slide. But basically what we wanted to do was just come and talk to you about some of the new tech that Microsoft have announced over the last few weeks and months. Give you some demos where we can demo it, and just give you our take, really.
Yeah, and I think just to add to what Zoe said, I think we've kind of kept this one fairly lightweight, fairly informal, is what I would say. We haven't gone to town with slideware. It's more a couple of demos and kind of what we think, what we're excited about, really. A very brief bit about myself. Luke Evans, Solutions Architect. I used to work at Microsoft doing SharePoint. Since then, I've done security, identity, endpoint, basically the whole 365 stack. My handles is Luke Evans Tech, so feel free to follow me or connect to me on LinkedIn.
Brilliant, thanks, Luke. So I'm Zoe Wilson. I'm the Director of Innovation and Customer Success at Agilysys. I've had the pleasure of working with Luke for almost 5 years now, I think, Luke. I'm a Microsoft MVP for Office Apps and Services. I talk about all kinds of things, some of the business problems people have that could be solved with Microsoft 365, accessibility, women in tech, diversity, all kinds of stuff, really. My Twitter handle is at the bottom, and my LinkedIn one isn't the same as Twitter, actually, which is annoying. I noticed yours were both the same, Luke.
I'm also the same on GitHub, Reddit, anywhere you can imagine. I'm trying to get that handle everywhere, basically. So please, no one on the call go and steal it from me. But it seems to work quite nicely so far.
Brilliant. All right. So the first thing we're going to talk to you is about Cameo. Now, just raise your hand if you know what Cameo is, if you've heard about it already, or if it's completely new to you.
We got John. John has shot his hand up immediately there, Zoe. He's all over it, unfortunately.
It's completely new to me.
But
brilliant. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got another hand as well. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So Cameo is this ability to be able to embed your camera feed directly into your slide content. No idea why they called it Cameo. But it's basically this ability to integrate the camera feed that directly into slides, and it allows you, it gives you an alternative to using the camera in Teams, or that, you know, I mean, there are tons and tons of really cool ways that you can present in Teams these days. You've got all of the different like presenter mode layouts, you know, the kind of side by side, the reporter view. PowerPoint Live's got some pretty cool things in it, but actually I think for certain types of sessions, this is a really great way to make your content really engaging. I did spend some time earlier seeing if I could like get the angle right for pointing at the content. So I think, you know, there's sorry, Luke. I think, you know, there's you know, with some practice, you can kind of get some really good good visual stuff going on. This is available now if you're signed up to Office Insiders. If you're not and you want to be, you can go sign up to this. And then once you've signed up to Office Insiders, you just need to change your Office apps to the beta channel. I've had this probably for a couple of weeks now. I know Luke hasn't got this yet because he doesn't want to mess around with his Intune config. The full release of this will be coming soon. And one of the things I'm really excited about is this coming to PowerPoint Live, because from what I understand, once this comes to PowerPoint Live, if I was sharing this using that presenting Teams option, then Luke would just be able to hit take control and it would replace my camera with his camera feed, which I just think is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I mean, Zoe, that was going to be my next question, is how can we both get on the same slide? Because, you know, we love to talk, both of us. So, I mean, how can we, you know, give the people what they want, more of us is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so it's a really good question, and it's something that I have actually, I have seen this come up on kind of, you know, PowerPoint. There are PowerPoint forums. I have seen this question come up. I don't know if this is something that they're planning to do, but actually I do think this would be awesome if you could have two different like camera objects that you could put on the slide. And just to give you an overview of what the object controls look like. So the first thing that you do, if you have Cameo available in your PowerPoint, then the way that you add this is exactly the same way that you'd add a text box or a shape or any other object. And that is by just going to the Insert tab, and then right at the right at the end, you've got the little Cameo bottom button which says Camera underneath it. So you hit that, and it pops a little shape onto the slide, and then from there you can move it around, you can resize it, you can apply a border, you can change the shape of it, you can crop the side of it. You can basically do almost as many things to the camera object as you can to any other object that you get in PowerPoint. And if you want to see what this looks like, you can just hit this little preview button here, and that will turn on the camera whilst you're in edit mode. And then the other cool thing that you could do is actually apply transitions to control how that Cameo object moves between slides as well. So as I came from the previous slide to this one, it had morph, so the shape kind of rolled and moved around. And again, I mean, you know, that's kind of just a little nice to have, really. I think being able to put your content in the slides is the best bit, but for me, I think this is just fantastic. The other thing you'll notice as well is, you know, I've kind of layered some objects behind and in front of the camera. I think Luke was laughing at the cats when this first came up on screen. There may be a little bit of a cat theme going on throughout the session. But, you know, this is just like a really cheesy example. But actually, if you think about really nicely designed slides, you could get some really nice kind of, you know, filters and framing and things that kind of surround the camera that make it look really effective. So there's tons of stuff that you could do. One thing that I would say, and this caught me out a couple of times when I was demoing this, is that only one app at a time can access your camera. So if you're in the Teams meeting with your camera switched on, and then you want to kind of, you know, beam up the slide, you have to turn the camera off first, because otherwise Teams already has that priority. So that's just one thing to watch.
And I think for me, Zoe, the one that I would say on Cameo specifically is the one where, you know, Teams, the different presentation modes where you could do side by side, you can do over the top. I think the one where I did over the top, I'd always be landing up on the content of my slides. So this is, I think, the perfect use case for this tech, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, you just reminded me of something else. So I don't know if people are familiar with the recording facility that you've actually got within PowerPoint. So again, if you look on the slide here, you've got this record tab. What that will let you do is actually record your presentation with your video and with your audio as well. So you could turn your slides into 15-minute video if you wanted to. Cameo doesn't work with that yet. And I know that with some of the dynamic presenter modes in PowerPoint Live, where you've got it over the top of the content, it doesn't capture that when you record Teams meetings and things either. So I do think that there are certain things like that will take a few months to catch up afterwards. So it's just something to be aware of. If you want to use this and then you will need to record the presentation, there's just a few things to be mindful of probably in terms of how you're recording it. So if this is working in PowerPoint Live, don't record it as a Teams meeting, because it's not actually going to record the camera object on the screen properly. So just some little things like that I think might trip people up when this is ready. Any questions on Cameo before we move on? No, all good. All right. So the next thing we're here to talk about is Microsoft Loop. And if you look at the spiel from Microsoft, this is the ability to create content, capture ideas, collaborate with others. So Luke, how is this different from how we can already work?
Well, I think, Zoe, that was my line, but I'm happy to roll with the punches is what I would say. So I think it's a great question, and I was looking at what makes Loop different and how does it work and why should we be excited really. Now I don't know how many people are familiar with Loop. It was previously called Fluid Framework is what it was called before. It's been rebranded to Loop as the last Ignite, I think it was. And basically, if you think about when we first moved to BPOS or Office 365 originally, the thing that really changed the game, and I think Google Docs originally brought it out, but it was really that kind of co-authoring experience of a single document, as it were, or a single spreadsheet. Now, the idea there is that we can work together in real time, create content, share ideas, and work together in a single kind of container. And that container, in this instance, is going to be a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet, a PowerPoint, whatever it may be. Now, the way that I see Loop offering kind of over and above that is we're kind of looking at a more modular or more granular level. So what Loop offers is, if you take that concept of co-authoring, collaboration in real time and working together, we have something called a Loop component. And these Loop components are individual pieces of content that may exist within an email, within a presentation, within kind of a Word document. And what do I mean by that? I mean, let's take, for example, a list or a table. Yeah. Now, these are examples of something like a Loop component. Now, that means we could take a table, we can work collaboratively on that table, and it doesn't really matter where it lives. It's going to get updated in all the different sources where that Loop component is referenced. So the idea in my mind, and this is me trying to explain it, this is me just trying to think about how to explain it, is that if you go further down into a document, if you take individual components and we enable co-authoring on them and reusability across the whole 365 kind of platform, as it were, that's a Loop component. And we've got some demos in a minute to kind of run you through what it actually looks like, to try to help kind of, I guess, explain it, try to add some kind of real world context as to how it looks and how it works. Now, there's a few different elements of Loop. The three key elements in my mind of Loop are the following. We've got Loop components, and this is the only one that we've really got to play with yet. So if you're on Teams, you can start accessing Loop components from maybe 2-3 months ago, Zoe, is when we started seeing them come out. And basically, we can use the Loop components that are available to us. And I think they have a number that are available for us to play with: tables, checklists, bulleted list. There's a whole bunch of different ones that we can do. And those components, the way I see it working is we have the two other components. One is a page, and a page is the combination of a bunch of different Loop components. It's they call it, what's the word I'm looking for? A flexible canvas, I think is the marketing speak. But the idea there is that we can combine all our Loop components together, all our ideas, and work together collaboratively with a number of these different components. The final piece is a workspace, which is basically, think about it this way in terms of a hierarchy. We have components that go into pages, and these pages can form a workspace. And a workspace is not just limited to Loop components. It can be just pages of content. It can be documents. It can be links. It can be whatever you want it to be in terms of the content that allow you to store. But the idea is that we can gather our loop components, gather our associated files, whatever it may be that's particular with a particular project, subject, topic, and we can work collaboratively on them. Now, what that means is we're going to end up with another client as part of the M365 stack. We're going to get the loop client that's going to come out to our users and basically allow us to basically work, I guess, in these loop pages and loop workspaces. And what I would say is I haven't had a chance to play with pages or workspaces or the client. We're not really sure when they're going to come out just yet. What we do know, though, is when you create a loop component, it's stored in your OneDrive. It's stored as a .fluid file, and you can reshare that anywhere. So at the moment, we can take those components, and if you want, you can paste them into different areas.
Yeah, I think on that though, I think so it's really easy natively to use in Teams.
Yep.
And then you can there's the ability now to kind of search that you can create a loop component filter on your Office 365 homepage, so you can easily find the loop components that you've shared. I don't think you've got the native ability to kind of embed loop components yet into things like OneNote and Word and PowerPoint and stuff like that, have you?
No, so I actually looked on this today and it says rolling out now. So some lucky people out there probably have it. I haven't got it just yet. I was messing around with it this morning. I haven't got access to it, but I have plagiarized some videos from Microsoft to kind of show what that experience is like on the next few slides. And then we will probably just demo one live as the plan. So what we're looking at here is someone creating a loop component in Teams, and you can see they're creating a table, and we can see multiple people are editing this component at once is the idea. You can hover over it and see who's made changes or where they're voting in this example. And that at the simplest form is kind of a loop component is what we're looking at. So imagine these reusable pieces of content that we want to, use throughout the 365 stack. So the really interesting thing as well is that this will actually work with some things from Dynamics 365 as well, won't it? So things like customer sales opportunities. And that, again, you spot on, Zoe. I think I don't know when that one's coming. There's been no kind of demo or preview of that. But yeah, the longer term vision is to have these components surfaceable in Dynamics as well. The next one is a page, and this is a loop page on screen. And again, you can see multiple people working on different parts of the page. We can add our loop components in, and you can see, well, I mean, this just looks crazy. This looks nuts. You've got emojis flying around. I don't even know what to expect from the loop pages at this point in time, if I'm honest. I like the components. I like how they're working at the moment. I love the idea that we could take, some bullet points from a meeting and they're surfaceable in an email, presentation, Word document, wherever it may be. That seems awesome to me, is the one. And the final one we've got up here is a loop workspace here. And this is the client for Microsoft Loop. And you can see we've got basically different loop workspaces on the left. It looks a bit familiar to Teams. I'll give you that, is the one. So we have kind of a tree structure navigation on the left. But we can see under these workspaces, you have loop components, we have PDFs, we have OneNotes, we have Word documents, we have pages. And the idea is that we can collate these together and basically use them as loop workspaces. And that's the three kind of different elements that I've kind of discovered that make up Microsoft Loop.
Yeah, I think one of the use cases that when I'm explaining this to people, one of the use cases I often use is things like, someone in finance sending out a table with some financial data in, and then some stuff happens that changes that. So I send you a table, Luke, and that data could potentially be out of date at that point in time. Whereas if I send you a loop component and then I change the data that's in this, then that would automatically update in the email or in the Word doc or wherever we've got this embedded. And that just means that, if you think about this one source of the truth, it makes it easier for people to have that instead of like looking through their email and coming across something that actually isn't correct anymore.
And I think it introduces an interesting paradigm that we're going to have components that are constantly updated. Yeah. Because what if I did want to take a snapshot in time? How do I do that with a loop component? How does that work? Is the only one.
Can you stop people editing it? Yeah, I think there's going to be a real governance question around that because, again, so maybe if you're kind of giving people prices or something like that could be a bit fluid, you might want that to change. But actually, if you're sending someone year-end results, you might want that to just be like fixed.
Exactly. So I think it does introduce some new complications, but I think what it enables is far more powerful. Certainly, that one version of the truth is going to be awesome.
Cool. Now, right, so let's see this in action. So you'll have to excuse the gifs that me and Luke have been sending each other just to, clear the chat a little bit. Okay, so if you've got Teams, if you've got Loop switched on in Teams, then in a chat, you'll see this little component, this little icon here. Now you'll notice that it's not available in this meeting chat that we're in. It won't work, I believe, if you're in a chat with guests. It doesn't work in channels yet. It's only in chats. It does work in group chats, and it works in one-to-one chats. And setting this up is super easy. So I'm basically going to create a checklist. Sorry, I'm not very imaginative when I am doing live demos. Okay, so I am going to send this to Luke.
Mhm.
Now, this has been created in my OneDrive. So, you know, if I copy this link and open this in a browser or anything like that, that's in my OneDrive. That's where that lives. And what you can see here is, you know, Luke actively adding new stuff to this. So I could say, okay, so we've talked about Cameo. You know, we've more or less finished Loop. You know, maybe some other stuff that we might want to add in here. Oh.
I think the other cool part of this one is you can see me checking it off, and you can see me in the top right as well. So you see a little circle with me. So you can see me, I'm busy away and I'm active in this Loop component. I think the other nice things are that you can copy the link in the top right, and we can also manage who has access to this Loop component. Because it's stored in your OneDrive, it's .fluid file in your OneDrive. We can control access, so you can limit who has visibility of these. And on top of that, we can also copy link and share it with more people. So we can invite more people to work on these Loop components with us.
There we go. So just to show you what that looks like, I've copied that link. I've opened this in the browser. You can see this is, you know, it's still referencing Fluid here. This is still, so for people who are on an old version of Teams, if I've sent them a Loop component that has, you know, sometimes they just get kind of a link in the Teams chat, and then when they click on it, it forces them into the browser, and the browser is the only way that they can interact with it, which I think is quite interesting. So if someone says to me that this isn't working, my advice is go and update Teams, because that's usually the cause. There we go. We can see that that is persistent across both the browser and the Teams chat.
So yeah, that, I mean, in real world terms at the moment, it's relatively small, but I think this is going to be awesome. Very powerful stuff when it comes along. I think the ability to create these lists, charts, components, whatever it may be, and kind of moving them around the whole 365 stack is going to be awesome.
Yeah, and just to give some other real world examples where, looking back, I think this would have really helped me. I work on a lot of kind of big bids and proposal writing and things like that. You know, so you kind of have a team of people who are typically working through answering loads of questions and writing, you know, big long documents. And sometimes we need to go to an SME from a different part of the business. So, you know, if I think of one that I was working on last year, I had to work quite closely with HR for some sections of it, for example. And the way that we had to work with them was to share all of our drafts with them, and they had to come into these big 80-page documents and go to, like, you know, the one page where we needed them to input. And yeah, we could tag them in, you know, we could give them a task and mention them and, you know, pull them into the bit of the document they need to be. But actually, how much more powerful is it if I could just create like a Loop component like this? The two of us can collaborate quickly on the information that we need, and then I take that and transpose that into the master document. So I think you know, co-authoring is fantastic, but you don't necessarily need to kind of bring people into every document, and you don't need to document for everything.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. Any questions on Loop? No. Okay. Are you all still there?
Well, don't ask all at once is what I would say. Hold some back, and we'll get to them at the end. You know. Thanks, Andy.
Yes, again, if you do think of any, I'm sure Zoe and Luke won't mind just sort of shouting out along the way.
Right, well, this one I'm hopeful is the most fun of the trio that we're coming to talk to you about today is the one. Let's both look great, fantastic. Thank you, Andy. So, what is Microsoft Mesh? I mean, to be honest, these slides I threw together kind of last minute. I'm more excited about the demo today. But what is Microsoft Mesh? So, it's a virtual reality, augmented reality, and basically what you see on the screen. The idea is, and I'm sure you guys heard of the metaverse and all this, is the, it's the latest rage, really, is the thing. So Microsoft is joining the metaverse bandwagon, and we have Microsoft Mesh, which is kind of the virtual reality, the augmented reality that exists today. If you play with, say, the HoloLens, and me and Zoe have actually played with a HoloLens at South Coast Summit this year, and it was absolutely crazy, to be honest. It was so much fun.
Yeah, when I was looking at this GIF there, I mean, we didn't try passing a fish through a hoop, did we? That looks like quite good fun.
Well, I remember throwing a car at you and all sorts. And
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone saw the Ignite presentation. This guy on the left, Alex Kipman, I don't know what this dude was smoking, but he was out of it. He was on another planet, this guy. So, I mean, he seems like the right sort of guy to be pitching this. Basically, we take the concept metaverse, the alt reality, virtual reality, and what is Mesh for Teams? Is basically taking Teams users into to collaborate in a virtual spaces, work with persistent 3D content, and access Teams either from the mixed reality glasses and VR headsets. Also, the ability to kind of do that within kind of a traditional app or kind of computer is the important thing. It looks to offer an immersed collaborative experience. Like we can see on the right, it's a Teams meeting that's taking place in Mesh for Teams or the metaverse or whatever you want to call it. The key is that we're taking the Teams experience and we're moving it to virtual or alt reality is the important thing. That's what Mesh for Teams really is.
Yeah. Now one thing you'd notice is that they don't have legs. The avatars don't have legs. I was actually on a call. So I'm in the Women in Teams community, and I was on a call where they had a lady called Holly Lehman, who's one of the product managers to Teams, and somebody asked her that question, and she said, "Well, you've spent the last 2 years sitting in front of the camera at home. No one can see your legs."
Well, I feel like that's a bit of a cop-out, but what I was going to say on this is built on three things. Now, to be honest, there's only one that I really think is kind of, I guess, merited is the thing. Microsoft acquired AltSpace VR, which is kind of an alt reality, virtual reality platform. I think in 2017, it's going to form the basis of Mesh for Teams, and we're going to kind of walk you through what does that look like and what might a Teams meeting experience look like in a minute. They also say they're building on features like Together Mode, which I think the idea there really was, I guess, virtual fatigue or meeting fatigue is the one. Now, Zoe, I'll probably defer to you to talk about that because I know that's one of your favorite topics. But for me, I think Together Mode was introduced to help combat that. And I think the idea here, Mesh for Teams, is another way of combating that.
Yeah, it's exactly that. I mean, what they found by hooking people up to, monitors that read your brainwaves was if you're in a normal Teams meeting and you're just looking at all these kind of rows of cameras, like, the Muppets gallery, the way that your brain processes it can be quite fatiguing. And what they found was that with Together Mode, it creates that, it basically makes it look like everybody's in the same room so that when your brain processes all of the cameras, it's able to, it basically feels more natural. So you're able to do things like read people's body language better. It just is a lot less tiring for your brain. And I like it. But I think the metaverse is going to be a whole new level.
I'll put my hand up. I've used Together Mode about 3 times, so I'm hopeful that this is going to have a lot more traction. We've been playing with it. Not specifically Mesh for Teams, but the underlying platform that's built on. And to be honest, it's a lot more engaging for myself. I mean, we've had a lot of fun getting this one together. So let's wait and see.
Yeah, I think what I would say is, Mesh for Teams isn't out yet. So when we get to the demo, what we show you is basically us kind of imagining what this experience could be like.
Mm-hmm. And I think what are some of the key benefits of Mesh for Teams? What's the sales pitch really? What are some of the things that it offers over and above that? And I think there's some really cool ones here. First one, audio cues. I read about this. I'm still trying to piece together what are the key features here. And they said it's going to interpret audio cues. You might not say anything, but it'll use audio cues to change your avatar's expression, which I don't even know how that's going to work. Maybe if you laugh, it's going to start laughing. I'm guessing that's what they mean by audio cues. The one that really looks awesome is Holoportation, and that is a Microsoft brand word, buzzword. But the idea is that it creates a hologram of yourself and transports it into Mesh for Teams. So it's actually like a physical, it's a representation, a holographic representation of yourself that looks like you, as opposed to a 3D avatar, which is what we're going to be using in a moment. But an avatar is a kind of one that you can make, or it's a 3D image of yourself. It doesn't look realistic, or it looks I wouldn't say it looks realistic. The idea is it's more cartoon based, more avatar driven. The final ones that I wanted to do is multi-device compatibility. It's going to be available on any VR headset, HoloLens 2, and all mesh-enabled kind of apps, so iOS, Android, tablets, PCs. The one I'm most excited about is hopefully getting my hands on some VR headsets when it launches. They've said it's coming first half of 2022, so I'm hopeful we can have a play with it once it gets there. And then the other one was kind of virtual workspaces. So the idea that we can go and will there be filters to make me look younger? I hope to God there will be. But the good news is, you can customize your avatar so you can make it look however you like. Now, I really don't know how that's going to work in Mesh for Teams, simply because if I walk in looking like a green alien, I'm wondering what people are going to say. But let's hope there is something for us.
Yeah, I think there's something really funny on that. So me and Luke have been getting set up this week, and when you first join AltSpace VR, all the avatars look the same, which is really, really confusing when you're trying to figure out what on earth you're doing in this virtual world, and you think you're talking to your mate, and actually you're talking to like some random guy from another country who starts following you around, telling you that you're on mute. It's like the worst Teams meeting ever.
There was 4 of us with identical avatars standing around a campfire, and we were trying to figure out. I was trying to figure out who Zoe is. She was trying to figure out who I was. It was a lot of fun. But enough of this. The final one I'd say is Workspaces. It's just the virtual representation of the users and the virtual representation of their workspaces. I think for me, this is a really interesting one for Mesh for Teams, because it may be that you have company branded rooms. I don't know. The sky's the limit, because you can build your own worlds in AltSpace VR. So I'm wondering, is there going to be a corporate element of us branding these kind of rooms or workspaces, and what do they look like? What does a meeting room look like for your organization?
Yeah, I mean, Accenture have already done that, haven't they? They've used the metaverse to build an entire VR canvas called the Nth Floor, and they use that for things like company events, onboarding, and if you think about like a new starter experience, if you have people being inducted, you could actually bring them into VR. They can kind of walk up, bump into some other random avatar and have an actual chat. So I think it will pose a really interesting dynamic.
I think it's going to be interesting, that's for sure. I'm excited to see what comes of it. Is the one.
Brilliant. All right, so let's jump into my virtual world. Luke, are you here?
I am. I'm in. I'm in the AltSpace VR. I'm in the metaverse, as it were. But this is kind of the platform that it's going to be built on. So this is kind of what you're seeing here. I'm going to see if I can get through, because I remember last time I'm actually blocked because the giant cat, unfortunately, has stopped me from moving. Is the one.
Yeah. So this world is one that we set up using a template. So when you start building a Wdac world, there are loads of templates that you can use. Some of them are just like random world designs, and then there are some that have been quite clearly designed for presentations, events, user groups, things like that, where you've got an arena or a keynote stage. And that's what we've done here. So when you first come into this world, you've kind of got, this nice little outside chill area. So again, if you think you've got like multiple avatars in here, they can just come up, have like, a random chat with some of the other attendees. And then we might have customized this a little bit. So we've got a bar, my Twitter handle. You've kind of got Luke's hiding behind the giant cat. We've added a car. I mean, we've added things that are kind of, super jerky. But what we wanted to do was to demonstrate how easy it is to actually customize this. And if I just go into the world editor, so I can come in here, I could add, don't know, let's just add some other random animal. Let's add a crocodile. There we go. So now we've just got a little random crocodile that's floating around. You can kind of, you can resize this. You can position this kind of on the floor. You could do this. You can create your own though. So you could have, you could basically you could turn this into your office or whatever you want, really. So I'm going to leave this world editing mode. Luke, are we ready to go with our screen?
I think there's one thing you're missing. So no one knows what you look like is the problem. So is it advised for you to take a selfie? Is probably one thing I was going to suggest.
Yeah. Okay. So there we go. Photo saved to gallery. I wonder if you can get selfies with other people in them.
I genuinely don't know. So yeah, if you come on into the Keynote Arena.
So you can see, I mean, the slides on the screen might look familiar to you.
So this is the same deck that we've just ran through, and you can see here's my intro screen, and
you can see Luke with a microphone as well.
So I picked up that. Zoe, this is your slide. You might want to point some things out, possibly.
Where's the laser pointer? Oh, it's there. There we go. You get a laser pointer. So obviously, this was where Cameo was before. Fortunately, Cameo's not working in Workspace VR. But here we've got my Twitter handle again, and when you put things down, it just kind of yeets them. Oh.
I think that is kind of it for the Workspace VR demo for today. Is what we had. I think we had a lot of fun putting it together. We're hopeful that this kind of gives you a flavor of what a mesh for teams kind of meeting would look like. Is the one that's really what we're
maybe without the giant cat.
Maybe without the giant cat, but it remains to be seen as to how this might work. I think the interesting things for us in terms of IT professionals, I think what we really got to. Oh, actually, there's a few other things that I talk about. The other cool thing that I wanted that we kind of missed on this one was that there is a concept of kind of hosts and presenters. So me and Zoe at the moment are hosts, so we can kind of do what we like. There is some sort of element of control here. So I don't know, Zoe, if you can boot me. I don't know if it's possible, but you could mute me. You could remove my. At the moment, I have stage access. So the idea is that we can have participants. We can have basically normal people.
Yeah, I think because I've given you the admin role in the browser, I think basically, so there are a lot of controls that you can only manage in the browser. So if I edit in here, I can actually remove all of the permissions that I've given to Luke, and then the next time he comes back into the world, he won't have the host privileges anymore. So that was another thing that just took us a little bit of playing with. And I'm not going to lie, the editing controls are painful when you're using a mouse. I suspect they might be a little bit easier if you're actually using like a proper headset and handheld controls.
I think on top of that, the point I was trying to make is, look, if you set yourselves up at hosts, we can have me and Zoe on the stage, and all the other participants kind of have to sit in the seats. Really, is the idea there. So we can we can basically have set people on the stage talking about it. And I think, Zoe, that the one, I think you might have already mentioned it, but the use case for me was that kind of new starters to an organization. That would be pretty awesome, that you could come. At the moment, everything's remote. Can we come on in and meet the team, really?
Even something like this, I mean, you could really use a group in Workspace VR, and for this, me and Luke could have our voice amplified, and basically, so without the voice amplified, me and Luke could only hear each other if our avatars were like stood close together, and that volume goes down the further away that you get. But if you're the host and your voice is amplified, then people in the room are going to be able to hear you no matter where they are, and you can, in the same way that you can mute all in a Teams meeting, you can shut everyone up. I can actually hear you. Yeah, I can. Yeah, so I don't know if anyone else can actually hear you.
No, we can't.
I don't want to blast both of you guys, but what I'm trying to show here is when I'm talking, it's actually going to show the little bubble. I didn't want to. Zoe's listening to twice, which I'm sure is more than enough. So I muted myself in Teams just to kind of showcase what it looks like when I'm talking. I think
I've got like a double echo. I'm hearing you from both Workspace and the Teams.
I'm gonna mute my Workspace VR client now. The only other thing that was interesting was the personal bubble, but we really couldn't figure that one out. Is the thing, because I know there's a recent one from Facebook where they've introduced the bubble. It's already in Workspace VR, but we couldn't really get it working. Is the thing here.
We couldn't tell what difference it made, could we?
No, because at this point in time, we can just run through each other. And it doesn't really block anything, is the thing.
Yeah, so make yourself fly.
Oh, okay, all right, hold on, let me see.
So there's a couple of bits that we feel are a little bit glitchy still in this.
Turn around to the screen, I'm I'll see if I can break it again and see. I can't quite remember.
That was the toggle environment button, wasn't it?
I think that's how I broke it last time, was the one. I think I'm stuck now, I can't actually. But yeah, there's still some work to be done here, is what I would say. That's how I feel about. And then I'm gone. I've flown through the map at this point. I've left the building.
Brilliant. So, Raheem, your avatar does look younger. Raheem, we did look for some printers to put into the into the virtual world, but we couldn't find any. Andy, I have to admit, I thought Mesh would be a bit of a gimmick when I first saw the Ignite demos. I'd agree with that. I'd agree, Andy. I think that there's a huge amount of potential, and like we said, we haven't actually seen Mesh for Teams. You know, I think that the first thing that you'll be able to do is create your custom avatar, and then I think there'll be kind of incremental changes after that as they bring some of the features out. But what we wanted to do is just get stuck in really and see actually, you know, how can we imagine this adding value? And I think it's going to bring a whole new dimension to this hybrid work.
Well, I tell you, the thing that I look forward to the most is probably the following: is I can see, you know, we've got 3 people with cameras on. I think the thing that I like the sound of as part of this is that a lot of people might not want to put their cameras on, but what you do have the option of is that you can have your camera on and it's represented by your avatar, so you don't necessarily have to have people look at you, but a 3D representation of yourself would be automatically drawn, and it can follow your facial expressions. It can track your movement. You're not
body movements, yeah, hand gestures. People like me who likes to kind of, you know, wave my hands around a lot.
So that is kind of a halfway house. Hopefully, it gets more people on kind of camera, even if it's in a virtual avatar. You know, it looks pretty cool.
Any questions?
And yeah, I mean, sorry, before that, I have to agree. It looked like a bit of a gimmick to me, Andy. But for me, I've already found it more enjoyable, more engaging than the together mode. So I feel like, you know, it might well be a goer. We'll have to see.
Any questions? Has anyone got anything they'd like to add before? I found it really, I mean, I'd absolutely love that. It's just a fun way of doing something virtually, isn't it? I'd just be playing on it for hours. That'd be my issue. I'd get just carried away.
I think that was half the problem with me and Zoe. The first time we were in there, we were throwing cats, cows, whatever it is. We earlier today I was blowing up a cat. I made it about 4,000 times bigger than it's supposed to be.
King Kong cat.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is anybody using Loopin? Zoe, you said you're using Loopin Anger actually in the business. Is it how are you getting traction with some of the other users? Was it quick and intuitive for them to?
It's easy for them to use. I think the way that I typically drive, I mean, I wouldn't say we've got a huge amount of people using it. I think there's people like me and Luke, you know, some of the people we work with who are using it. The way that I drive the usage of new features and tools like this, though, is very much by example. So if I need to collaborate with someone, I'll start the Loop component and show them how to do it. And then when they know how to do it, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. You know, I mean, we've got about 1,200 users, I think, maybe 1,400. I lose track. So we're not a massive organisation, and I think that's worked okay for us.
So yeah, for me, you know, I've used it for some simple lists between different colleagues. That's about as far as my actual real world usage of Loop has gone. I'm thinking once we can get it into the Office client, it will probably start actually gaining some traction. But until then, I think the use case is limited because it is kind of just Teams.
So we have quite a bit of product development internally, and obviously that's quite fluid, quite agile. I'm trying to see how this might fit into that arena, but obviously then we want to try and demonstrate to our customers as well how this is useful for them. So it was good to get your insight.
Yeah, I think it probably, for me in that product development lifecycle, I probably use it more for kind of ideation and, you know, working through that kind of that initial phase, and then you want to move things into like a proper backlog. So you know, once you've kind of got the list of features and things like that. But I think for that first collaboration and just bouncing ideas around, I think it's not going to be the same as getting people in the office, is it? But I think once it works in OneNote, I think OneNote's the app that's going to be the killer one for me.
John,
on
I
mute.
think you're on mute, John,
I
unfortunately.
am on mute. I was going to say, if there's no other questions, just want to thank Luke, Zoe, and Dean today for your presentations. And as always, today is sponsored by BitTitan. Check BitTitan out, BitTitan.com out for your migration needs to the cloud. Again, thanks everyone for coming. I think we're going to have another one in May. I'm looking at you, Sophie. May.
Yeah, and we've got loads of people that are really interested in speaking, which is amazing. But if you know anyone, or if you guys want to speak or do a little tech session, whatever, we do have forms, don't we, John, that you can fill in. I think they might be on our Microsoft Spotlight user
Website.
group.
Yeah.
Our website, but if not, I'll post them, I'll repost them. And again, any feedback for us, that'd be much appreciated. This is the first time we've done this, so really interested in hearing your feedback. And if you want to give me and John a follow on LinkedIn and everything, that'd be really helpful as well.
Sophie, I love the costume change. Like at the start of this, when I came on, you were like, I said to Luke, you made me feel completely underdressed. And then
I'll be honest. Zoe messaged me, said I'm feeling underdressed. I said I look like a homeless. I look like a hobo. So I went and changed into a polo shirt. I was like, Raheem saw me in the meeting previously, and I had a t-shirt. So you made us all up our game, you know.
Thank you. I've been in meetings and I was like, right, I'll dress up whatever, but I'm going to the cinema at 6:10 to watch a film with my friends. So I was like, I'll quickly put a jumper on and it'll be fine. So I don't want to go to the cinema with later on, do I? But no, thank you. It was, all in a trick.
Cool.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for
Pleasure as
having us.
always.
Oh, thank you guys.
Yeah, it was
Take care. Bye-bye.
Lovely.
All right,
Thanks, guys.
thanks,
Have a good one. Cheers,
Thank
man.
you. Bye.
Bye, bye,
Bye-bye.
bye.
Thank you for watching the Microsoft Spotlight user group. Please make sure you hit that like, share and subscribe button to help us expand our community. We're also on Twitter at MSFT Spotlight and LinkedIn, the Microsoft Spotlight. And finally, we'd like to tell you a little bit more about BitTitan and thank them for sponsoring this user group.
Remote migrations start here. Let MigrationWiz do the work for you. It's fast, secure, and 100% SaaS, which means you can migrate at any time and from anywhere. Migrate mailboxes, documents, public folders, personal archives, or even Microsoft Teams with just a few clicks. No special training needed and no customer downtime. When the work matters, choose MigrationWiz.